the patchwork of colonies. Before America stood as a united nation, it was a quilt stitched from 13 very different pieces. In the rocky, wind-battered lands of New England, colonists carved out a living from the sea and from stubborn soil. Fishing boats left harbor before dawn, their sails snapping in the Atlantic wind. Shipwrights hammered frames together in busy yards, while farmers worked small, family plots surrounded by low stone walls. Further south, the Middle Colonies enjoyed rolling farmland, wide rivers, and some of the busiest ports in the Americas. In Philadelphia, the clamor of carts and hooves echoed down Market Street as merchants traded grain, iron, and lumber. In the South, the air was thick with heat and the scent of tobacco curing in wooden barns. Vast plantations stretched toward the horizon, their prosperity built on the forced labor of enslaved Africans whose toil under the blazing sun made the southern elite rich beyond imagining. Though tied to Britain by allegiance and trade, these regions were so distinct in culture, economy, and politics that they sometimes seemed like separate countries altogether. Yet, somewhere in that diversity, the earliest threads of a shared American identity were beginning to form. A day in the life. Dawn in the American colonies came not with the jingle of alarm clocks, but with the rooster's crow, the church bell's toll, or the faint glow of the horizon. In a New England fishing village, the morning meant rowing out into gray waters, pulling in nets heavy with cod. On a farm in Pennsylvania, it meant tending to horses and cattle before the heat of the day set in. On a plantation in Virginia, the work began in the pre-dawn darkness, as enslaved field hands stepped into rows of tobacco that stretched as far as the eye could see. Men labored as farmers, carpenters, merchants, or sailors. Women kept households running, baking bread in brick ovens, weaving cloth, and tending vegetable gardens. Children were not idle. They fetched water, helped with chores, and in some families, learned to read from the Bible or hornbooks. Life was demanding and often short. Disease, accidents, and childbirth claimed lives young. Yet in the evenings, people gathered at taverns, danced at harvest celebrations, or shared stories by the fire. Hardship was a constant companion, but so was the comfort of community. Faith and belief. In the colonies, religion was more than worship. It was the center of public and private life. In Puritan New England, the church was both a spiritual home and a seat of local government. Attendance was compulsory, sermons could last for hours, and moral conduct was enforced with stern discipline. The Middle Colonies, however, painted a different picture. Quakers in Pennsylvania, Dutch Reformed congregations in New York, Catholics in Maryland, a rare mosaic of faiths living in relative tolerance. The South followed the Anglican tradition, its grand churches doubling as gathering places for politics and community affairs. Then, in the 1730s, the Great Awakening swept through the colonies, igniting fiery sermons in open fields, drawing thousands to hear preachers challenge the old order, and inspiring a more personal, emotional connection to God. These revivals stirred ideas of equality before God, ideas that would soon echo in the language of liberty and independence. The Colonial Economy. The economy of the colonies was as varied as its climates. In the rocky north, fishing fleets brought in cod that fed Europe, while sawmills and ironworks turned raw materials into goods for export. The Middle Colonies' fertile fields yielded wheat, corn, and barley in such abundance they were called the breadbasket of America. Trade flourished along rivers and through busy ports, where ships carried goods to the West Indies, Britain, and Africa in the vast network of the triangular trade. In the South, tobacco was king, followed closely by rice and indigo, crops that demanded backbreaking labor and drove the expansion of slavery. Small artisans, blacksmiths, coopers, shoemakers, filled local needs, while wealthy merchants and planters built fortunes that rivaled their counterparts in England. But beneath the prosperity lay tensions, economic dependence on Britain's markets and laws, resentment of taxes, and a growing awareness that colonial wealth was enriching the mother country far more than the colonies themselves. Education and ideas. In the American colonies, education was as diverse as the people themselves. In Puritan New England, literacy was considered essential for reading the Bible, so town schools were common. Boys learned reading, writing, and arithmetic. Girls were often educated at home in the domestic arts. In the Middle Colonies, education reflected cultural variety. Dutch, German, and Quaker schools offered lessons in different languages and faith traditions. In the South, geography and plantation life meant formal schooling was rare outside wealthy families, who often hired private tutors or sent sons to England for study. Colleges like Harvard, William and Mary, and Yale trained ministers, lawyers, and leaders who would one day shape the nation. Beyond formal education, ideas traveled in pamphlets, newspapers, and sermons, carrying with them the latest political philosophies from Europe, including Enlightenment ideas about rights, liberty, and self-government. These ideas would soon leap from the printed page into the hearts of revolutionaries. The road to change. Life in the colonies before independence was a balance of hardship and opportunity, tradition and change. People lived under British rule, traded in British markets, and considered themselves loyal subjects of the Crown. But as the years passed, a shift began. New generations were born who had never seen England. The frontier pushed ever westward, creating a sense of independence and self-reliance. Commerce and culture thrived without constant oversight from London. And the Enlightenment's call for reason, liberty, and natural rights began to resonate in taverns, churches, and homes. Though no one could yet see it clearly, the colonies were moving toward a future where they would no longer simply be extensions of Britain, but something entirely new. The world before the Revolution was fading, and a new nation's first heartbeat was about to be heard. If you like my video, then subscribe to my channel and like my video.